What's the best comic book movie ever made? Some of these films might cross your mind, and rightfully so. Each one of them is a great film in their own right, but at the same time managed to be a masterful adaptation of the source material. For a long time, I always thought of The Dark Knight as the best, but that all changed a few days ago when I stumbled upon a film that completely changed my perspective. Let's talk about Road to Perdition, why it is a cinematic masterpiece and one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. Directed by Sam Mendes, the talented filmmaker behind American Beauty, is based on a graphic novel written by Max Allan Collins and illustrated by Richard Pierce Rayner. Here we get to know the story of Michael Sullivan, a hitman who works for the Irish Mafia in Chicago. Although I must say the premise may not sound mind-blowing or the most original, its execution is impeccable, making it a cinematic gem that you have to see. By the way, there will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched it yet, do it and I'll see you back here. There are a few times in my life where while I'm watching a movie, an inner voice whispers to me, "This is art." And lo and behold, that very moment arrived with Road to Perdition. Conrad Hall, the great cinematographer behind the lens, painted a visual masterpiece, sadly to tragically depart this realm shortly after finishing production. His filmography stands as a testament to his genius, and his command of visual language is something to behold. No wonder he snatched that coveted Oscar in 2003 for this very film. Hall designs the visual language of each scene based on the emotional context of the characters. Let's take Tom Hanks's character, Michael Sullivan, as an example. Sullivan's moral ambiguity during the first part of the film poses a challenge to keep the audience at a distance from this iconic actor. I mean, we're talking about Forrest Gump here, and everyone loves Forrest Gump. That's why Sam Mendes, aware of this, instructed Hall in using lighting and composition as tools to achieve such a distance in between his character and us as an audience. Scene after scene, we witness Tom Hanks partially obscured, observed through half-closed doors, or kept at a distance from the frame. And since father-son relationships are a central theme of the film, Mendes and Hall explore this dynamic in a visual manner. Take a look at Michael Jr., standing apart from his father in multiple shots, whether through careful composition or the presence of physical barriers that keep them separated within the frame. Similarly, John and Connor Rooney experience this distancing even when they occupy the same physical space, but a visual element creates a divide between them. It's a perfect example of the less is more concept in these visual portrayals of emotional disconnection. Another reason why this film has such a distinctive look is because Sam Mendes drew inspiration from the paintings of Edward Hopper, the genius behind my favorite painting, Nighthawks. Hopper had a dramatic and cinematic style that beautifully reflected American life in the 1930s. Mendes strives to create a frame where the space surrounding a character becomes a visual key to the emotional significance of a scene. But there's one scene that I must discuss. It's now the legendary scene where Sullivan kills John Rooney and his goons in the pouring rain. It's one of the most beautiful and devastating scenes I've ever witnessed. A masterclass in visual storytelling. Let's analyze it. First, we have perfect symmetry. Mendes and Hall compose the scene with meticulous balance. As the men fall around Rooney, it's unnerving. You don't know whether to be scared or impressed. But then, like a ghost emerging from the mist, Sullivan appears. And as he gets closer, Rooney is perfectly framed between Sullivan's coat and the gun hanging at his side. The rain is the cherry on top, a secondary character that bathes the scene in a symbolic sorrow, completing the visual aesthetic. I love this scene. It's a work of art. It's like watching Picasso create a masterpiece, but instead of paint and canvas, it's rain and bullets. Rarely do the stars align in Hollywood to give us a cast of this magnitude. Let's start with Tom Hanks, who dared to venture beyond his comfort zone by embodying an anti-hero. But Michael Sullivan is no ordinary anti-hero. He's a far more complex character than that. The script, and the entire film, hinges on us never truly despising him, but rather understanding that his actions are motivated by love and loyalty. And thanks to Tom Hanks' masterful performance, we feel compassion instead of repulsion. He never succumbs to exaggeration or the cliches associated with such characters. Next, we have the great Paul Newman, who despite being in the twilight of his career, reminds us why he was one of the greatest actors of all time. His commanding presence as John Rooney, the criminal boss and Sullivan's adopted father, reveals a man who, like Sullivan, takes no pleasure in harming others, but is unrelenting when necessary. Moreover, he has to deal with his troubled son, Connor Rooney, played by James Bond himself, Daniel Craig, who swiftly manages to make us despise him. He's truly an SOB in this film. Even the young Tyler Hoechlin, yes, CW Superman, delivers a remarkable performance despite his young age, communicating so much through his body language. However, the biggest surprise comes from Jude Law's character, a photographer obsessed with death. His portrayal is unsettling, and his presence in every scene evokes a constant sense of danger and concern for any character who crosses his path. I believe that alongside Tom Hanks, it stands as one of the most underrated performances of his career. We encounter two pairs of fathers and sons and the notable emotional distance that separates them. The movie delves into themes such as the complex relationships between fathers and sons, redemption, loyalty, and of course, revenge. Let's consider the incident that sets the plot in motion. When Michael Sullivan's family is brutally slain, his code of honor propels him on a path of vengeance. However, as he embarks on a desperate quest to eliminate the culprit, Connor Rooney, he also needs to confront his lifelong father figure, John Rooney. But here lies another fascinating aspect. Part of the rage that drove Connor to annihilate Sullivan's family was fueled by jealousy towards the relationship between Sullivan and his own father. It's like a Shakespearean family drama, but with more Tommy guns and fewer poetic words. It's these complex and twisted ideas about family and revenge that lend the film its depth and emotional resonance. This film is an emotional roller coaster, but instead of culminating in one final drop, it delivers us into a state of introspection. Michael Sullivan pays for his sins with his death, yet manages to prevent his own son from following the same path that condemned him to that fate. This act of sacrifice prevents his sins from transferring to his son, resulting in a poignant and powerful moment of redemption that left a lump in my throat. In the final moments of the film, Michael Sullivan's son narrates that people would ask him if there was anything good about his father. His response? He was my father. It's a sentiment that hit me right in the feels, especially because my own dad was sitting beside me while I watched this movie. That line reminded me of the power and complexity of family relationships. Road to Perdition isn't an easy film to watch, nor is it one that provides easy answers to its audience. It's a film that demands reflection and contemplation, one that lingers within those who have experienced it long after it's over. Road to Perdition is a masterpiece, and for me, it stands as the greatest comic book adaptation in cinematic history.